The Zephyrian Empire had perfected the art of conquest to such a degree that they'd practically turned it into a bureaucratic process. 47 star systems and counting, each one added to their collection with the same methodical precision one might use to catalogue insects. The process was beautifully simple: arrive with an overwhelming show of force, deliver the standard ultimatum, wait exactly 72 hours for the inevitable surrender, then move in to begin the civilizing process. Admiral Kethvar had overseen this routine 17 times personally, and each conquest had followed the script with mind-numbing predictability. Primitive species would panic, their leaders would plead. Sometimes they'd even attempt a laughably futile resistance before reality set in. The Zephyrians had elevated intimidation to an art form, their massive dreadnoughts capable of glassing entire continents with a casual volley. Today's target was particularly amusing: the third planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in what the locals called the Sol system. The inhabitants called themselves humans, and their technological assessment placed them somewhere between adorably primitive and genuinely pathetic. Chemical rockets, nuclear fission, radio waves. They'd barely managed to establish a few ramshackle outposts on their own moon. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Vextall from the sensor station, "we're detecting approximately 300 vessels in the system, mostly civilian craft, a few military patrol ships, nothing exceeding Class C threat parameters." Kethvar examined the tactical display with professional interest. The human fleet was scattered throughout the system, following predictable patrol routes. Their largest warship appeared to be roughly the size of a Zephyrian courier vessel. This would be over embarrassingly quickly. "Standard formation, Lieutenant. Broadcasting surrender demand in 30 seconds. The Zephyrian fleet arranged itself in the traditional intimidation pattern. 12 dreadnoughts formed a menacing semicircle around Earth's moon, their weapon arrays clearly visible and charging. The light show alone had been enough to convince the Drakmari to surrender without firing a shot. The Velkari had lasted almost 6 minutes before their government transmitted their unconditional capitulation. Kethvar activated the communication array and began the speech he could recite in his sleep. "Inhabitants of the Sol system, you are hereby addressed by the Zephyrian Empire. Your technological development has reached the threshold requiring imperial oversight. You have 72 standard hours to surrender your military forces and submit to integration into the Empire. Failure to comply will result in the systematic destruction of your civilization. This is your only warning." The transmission cut off, and Kethvar settled back to wait. In his experience, most species responded within 6 hours, usually with frantic attempts at negotiation. The humans would probably try to buy time, maybe offer tribute, possibly even attempt to bargain with their primitive resources. He'd heard they had decent mineral deposits. The response came exactly 3 hours later, but it wasn't from the planetary government as expected. Instead, a single transmission originated from what appeared to be a military vessel near the 4th planet in the system. "Zephyrian Fleet, this is Admiral Mackenzie Okafor of the Terran Defense Force. We've received your surrender demand and have given it due consideration." Kethvar leaned forward, intrigued by the speaker's tone. No panic, no desperation. The human sounded almost bored. "Heather, careful deliberation. We must respectfully decline your offer. Sol System is not interested in imperial integration at this time. We suggest you reconsider your aggressive posture and withdraw to a safe distance. This is our only warning." The bridge fell silent. Kethvar replayed the message twice, certain he'd misunderstood something. The human had delivered a counter-ultimatum, with the same casual tone one might use to decline a dinner invitation. "Lieutenant Vextall, confirm those readings on their fleet strength." "Confirmed, Admiral. 300 vessels, maximum threat level Charlie. Their largest ship registers approximately 800 meters in length." Kethvar's primary dreadnought measured 4 kilometers from bow to stern. The human's response wasn't just defiant, it was mathematically absurd. "Fascinating. Open a channel to their Admiral Okafor." The communication array activated, and Kethvar found himself looking at a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be a remarkably casual military uniform. She was eating something from a small container and looked mildly annoyed at the interruption. "Admiral Okafor, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps you don't fully comprehend the situation. We have 12 dreadnoughts capable of reducing your entire planet to molten slag. You have 300 toys, barely capable of interplanetary travel. The human admiral swallowed whatever she was eating and nodded thoughtfully. Oh, we comprehend perfectly, Admiral. We've been watching your empire's expansion for quite some time. Very efficient operation you've got there. Textbook intimidation tactics, overwhelming force projection, psychologically devastating weapon demonstrations. We're actually quite impressed. Then you understand that resistance is futile. Well, that's where we might disagree. You see, we've had a lot of time to prepare for this conversation. Roughly 3 centuries, give or take. We've been tracking your expansion patterns, studying your technology, analyzing your tactical doctrines. Very predictable, by the way. You might want to consider mixing things up occasionally. HFY felt the first stirring of something that might have been unease. 3 centuries? That's impossible. Your species only achieved spaceflight decades ago. Admiral Okafor smiled, and there was something deeply unsettling about the expression. That's what we wanted you to think. Humans have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We've been carrying some very big sticks for quite a while now. You're bluffing. Am I? Lieutenant Chen, please show our guests the Mjolnir array. The space around Earth's moons suddenly blazed with light as dozens of previously invisible installations powered up. Massive orbital platforms materialized from what had appeared to be empty space, their stealth fields deactivating to reveal weapon arrays that dwarfed anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Impressive holographic technology, HFY said, though his voice lacked conviction. Holographics? Oh, Admiral, you really haven't been paying attention. Okafor's smile widened. Computer, please give our Zephyrian friends a demonstration of human engineering. Target, that asteroid in the belt between planets 4 and 5, the one that's roughly the size of a small moon. One of the orbital platforms rotated slowly, its primary array focusing on a distant point of light. The energy discharge was so intense that it overloaded the Zephyrian sensors temporarily. When the interference cleared, the asteroid was gone. Not destroyed, not fragmented, gone. Converted to constituent atoms and scattered across several million cubic kilometers of space. Fascinating technology, Admiral Okafor continued conversationally. We call it matter dissolution. Breaks apart the strong nuclear force at the quantum level. Completely clean, no messy debris fields, very environmentally conscious. HFY's mandibles clicked nervously. Impossible. That level of energy manipulation requires technology about 2,000 years more advanced than your current level. Yes, we're well aware of the technical requirements. We've been working on it for quite some time. Your entire civilization is barely out of its technological infancy. According to our public face, certainly. Do you really think a species clever enough to split the atom would be stupid enough to advertise their true capabilities to a galaxy full of conquest-happy empires? Okafor paused to take another bite of whatever she was eating. We've been watching you for centuries, Admiral. Watching, learning, preparing. Did you honestly think we'd just sit here waiting for you to show up? The tactical display began updating with new information, as Zephyrian sensors detected previously hidden human installations throughout the system, weapons platforms, shield generators, what appeared to be entire fleets, concealed behind advanced stealth technology. This is impossible, HFY muttered. Our intelligence reports were carefully curated by us, yes. We've been feeding your intelligence network exactly what we wanted them to know for decades. Amazing how easy it is to fool someone when you tell them exactly what they expect to hear. Lieutenant Vextel's voice cracked slightly. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Whatever they're powering up, it's drawing more energy than our entire fleet combined. Admiral Okafor nodded approvingly. Excellent sensor work, Lieutenant. Yes, we're bringing our defensive systems online. Nothing personal, you understand. But we've learned that visitors with hostile intentions tend to do unpredictable things when cornered. Defensive systems? HFY's voice rose an octave. You just vaporized a moon-sized asteroid. Oh, that was just a mining laser. We used those for asteroid harvesting. The actual defensive systems are considerably more impressive. Lieutenant Chen, please show them the Bifrost grid. The space around the Zephyrian fleet suddenly sparkled with what looked like millions of tiny stars. Each point of light was a weapons platform, positioned with mathematical precision throughout the system. The grid extended from the inner planets to beyond the outer system boundary, creating a three-dimensional network of interlocking fire zones. 37,000 individual platforms, Okafor explained helpfully, each one capable of punching through approximately 4 meters of your standard hull plating. They're also networked with a distributed AI system that can coordinate targeting solutions in real time. Very efficient. You're completely surrounding us. Oh yes, we began positioning those about 6 hours ago. Stealth technology, you know, very handy for tactical maneuvering. We've also taken the liberty of disabling your faster-than-light communication array. We jammed your subspace transmitters approximately 2 hours ago. Wouldn't want you calling for reinforcements before we've had a chance to chat. Kethvar stared at the tactical display in growing horror. His overwhelming force advantage had vanished in the space of a few minutes. The humans had systematically eliminated every aspect of Zephyrian tactical doctrine while maintaining the pretense of casual conversation. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Want? We don't want anything, Admiral. We simply want you to leave. Take your fleet, return to your empire, and report that the Sol system is under new management. We're not interested in conquest, we're not interested in joining your empire, and we're certainly not interested in being conquered by you. The empire will never accept this. When they learn what happened here, they'll learn exactly what we want them to learn, which is that the Sol system is protected by technology they can't understand and can't counter. Your sensors have recorded enough data to make that point very clearly." Admiral Okafor stood up, brushing crumbs from her uniform. "Admiral Kethvar, you seem like a reasonable person. Your empire has had a good run. 47 systems is quite impressive, but your expansion ends here. Not because we're interested in stopping you, but because we're not interested in being stopped by you. You're making a mistake. The empire has resources you can't imagine, fleets that could darken the sky around your planet. We've imagined them quite thoroughly. We've been preparing for this conversation for 3 centuries, remember? We know exactly how many ships you have, where they're deployed, what their capabilities are, and how long it would take to gather them for a serious assault on our system." The human admiral's expression grew more serious. "Here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to take your fleet and leave. You're going to report that Sol system is defended by technology beyond your current understanding. You're going to recommend that the Empire avoid this region of space indefinitely. And you're going to do all of this because the alternative is watching your entire fleet get disassembled at the molecular level. You're bluffing." "Am I? Computer, please target the Zephyrian flagship's primary weapon array. Dissolution beam, minimum power." One of the orbital platforms rotated with mechanical precision. The energy discharge was barely visible, a thin beam of coherent light that touched the surface of Kethvar's dreadnought for exactly 1 second. When the beam shut off, the ship's primary plasma cannon array had simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, gone, leaving a perfectly smooth concave surface where 17 decks of military hardware had been moments before. "Minimum power," Admiral Okafor repeated. "At full power, that beam would have gone straight through your ship and out the other side, taking everything in between with it. We're not interested in starting a war, Admiral, but if you insist on continuing this conversation, we'll be happy to end it, permanently." The Zephyrian bridge was absolutely silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. Kethvar stared at the display showing the impossible crater in his ship's hull. The edges were perfectly smooth, as if the metal had been carved away by a surgeon's scalpel. "You've made your point," he said quietly. "Have we? Because I'm getting the impression that you're still thinking about this tactically. You're wondering if you can maneuver out of our kill zone, maybe call for backup, perhaps try to negotiate from a position of strength?" Okafor shook her head. "Admiral, you're not in a tactical situation, you're in a learning situation. The lesson is simple. Humans don't start wars, but when someone else starts one with us, we end it. Quickly, efficiently, and with extreme prejudice. The Empire. The Empire will adapt or it won't. Frankly, we don't care. We're not interested in galactic politics. We're not interested in expansion. We're not interested in trade agreements or diplomatic relations. We're interested in being left alone. Is that clear enough? Or do you need another demonstration? Kethor looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Professional military personnel who had served with distinction in dozens of campaigns. Every one of them was staring at the tactical display in barely controlled panic. "We'll leave," he said finally. "Excellent decision. You have 30 minutes to clear the system boundary. After that, our defensive systems will interpret your presence as hostile and respond accordingly." The communication channel closed, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. After a long moment, Lieutenant Vextal cleared his throat nervously. "Admiral, orders?" Kethvar continued staring at the tactical display, watching the countless human weapons platforms track his fleet's movement with mechanical precision. Each tiny point of light represented firepower that could gut his flagship in seconds. "All ships, prepare for immediate departure. Navigation, plot a course for the nearest Imperial relay station, maximum speed." "Sir, shouldn't we attempt to gather intelligence? Study their technology?" "Lieutenant, in the past hour, we've learned that everything we thought we knew about this species was carefully orchestrated deception. Their primitive technology is actually more advanced than our own. Their helpless planet is actually the most heavily fortified position in this sector of the galaxy, and their simple admiral just demonstrated the ability to erase my primary weapon system with a tool she described as a mining laser." Kethvar turned to face his crew. "We are leaving, now, before they decide that 30 minutes was too generous." The Zephyrian fleet departed Sol System with considerably more haste than they had arrived. Their sensors continued tracking the human defensive grid until they reached the jump point, where the displays finally returned to normal space readings. 3 days later, Admiral Kethvar stood before the Imperial War Council, delivering a report that would fundamentally reshape the Empire's expansion doctrine. The Sol System was declared a restricted zone, indefinitely. No Zephyrian vessel was to approach within 10 light-years of the human homeworld. The official report classified the humans as a level Omega threat, a designation that had never been used before in Imperial history. The technology demonstrations were analyzed, discussed, and ultimately filed under incomprehensible but definitely hostile. Meanwhile, in the Sol System, Admiral Mackenzie Okafor finished her lunch and returned to her regular duties. The orbital defense platforms powered down and resumed their camouflaged vigil. The stealth fields reactivated, hiding the true extent of human military capability from casual observation. Earth's radio telescopes continued broadcasting I Love Lucy reruns into deep space, just as they had for decades. The lunar research stations maintained their deliberately primitive appearance. The asteroid mining operations in the belt continued, using obvious chemical propulsion systems for any work visible to long-range sensors. To any casual observer, the Sol System appeared exactly as it had before the Zephyrian visit, a backwater system populated by a young species just beginning to explore their local stellar neighborhood, primitive, harmless, and utterly unremarkable. The humans had learned long ago that the galaxy was full of predators. They had also learned that the best way to deal with predators was to avoid looking like prey while secretly being the apex predator yourself. It was a delicate balance, but one they had perfected over centuries of careful preparation. After all, humans don't start wars, they just finish them, usually on the same day they begin. And in the vast emptiness between stars, the galaxy's other conquest-minded species began to receive very interesting reports about a small yellow star and its surprisingly well-defended third planet. Reports that suggested perhaps, just perhaps, there were some systems that were better left unexplored. The Zephyrian Empire's expansion slowed considerably after that, focusing on regions of space that were significantly farther from Sol System. Other expansionist powers made similar strategic adjustments, though none could quite explain why. But Admiral Okafor understood perfectly. Humans had spent centuries learning a very important lesson about galactic politics. The best way to win a war is to make absolutely certain it never becomes a fair fight.